one thing that I noticed very quickly is a lot of my clients were very hardworking people, but the numbers didn't reflect that. How does physical hard work and passion equate to financial success? You're not reliant on other people when things go wrong. Construction, obviously, incredible contributor to pollution and global warming and environmental factors. There isn't right or wrong. There's only fallout, and you have negative and positive fallout no matter which decision you make.
What advice would you give someone who's looking to be an entrepreneur?
One of the critical things that I have learned
Private markets investments are investors can find some real value. I find the best way to learn is learn from someone who's done it before and given it a go. Hi, I'm Travis Miller, host of Grow Your Wealth podcast. Thanks for joining me here today. On these podcast sessions, we're going to talk through how certain investors have navigated the bumpy road of investing, whether it be through business or investments in general. Thanks for listening today. Welcome to another episode of Grow Your Wealth podcast, where we explore the strategies and stories of financial success. I'm your host, Travis Miller, and today we have an extraordinary guest joining us, Charlie Puchala. Charlie's a founder, director, designer, innovator of numerous successful business ventures. Charlie co-founded Puch Constructions and Building over 15 years ago, and is the creative force behind Charlie's Interiors and ZA Collective, a slow fashion brand that embodies ethical, fair and sustainable practices. Outside of her professional life, Charlie champions sustainability. She's deeply committed to environmental preservation and improving mainstream systems to better support the planet. Join us as we dive deep into Charlie's colourful world, exploring how she merges her creative and entrepreneurial spirits to make a significant impact. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as a starting point, it'd be great just to get a bit of a potted summary of who you are and what you've been doing, what you're currently focused on from a business perspective.
Okay, so who am I from a business perspective?
Yeah.
Okay, working director, I would say primarily.
Yep.
Really quite passionate about sustainable development, construction, design, interiors.
Yep.
Not sure what else you'd like to know.
Yeah, got you. I mean, I've looked at your background, pretty interesting, coming from Poland.
Yes.
How did you end up in Australia?
Well, my father ended up over here working as an engineer, and so we immigrated when I was 8 years old, and ended up in a very, very tiny little village in Western Australia.
Yeah, gotcha.
So coming from Europe, which is architectural and beautiful, to outback desert land with a petrol station and a store and nothing else. Yeah. So it was quite a contrast,
Pretty interesting background, ending up in Sydney.
And yes, so at the age of 22, I decided that there had to be more to life and I was going to go and see it. So literally packed up a tiny little suitcase and bought a Greyhound bus. Back then you could actually buy the ticket that would let you stop off anywhere you wanted across Australia. And so, so packed up and off I went. Ended up in Sydney, ran out of money and was forced to work. So it was just as well that I fell in love with it and really enjoyed being here.
It's not a bad first stop though.
Well, it was one of many, but yes, it was great.
I got you. Now, can you take us through your education?
My education?
Yeah.
So I completed obviously primary school, high school, and then started a university degree. Didn't really find a lot of passion in any of it. Found it interesting, but couldn't really determine what I wanted to do. So I find it really fascinating that you're expected to know at a really young age what it is that you're meant to be studying or doing. So I kind of chose subjects that I was passionate about. For me, it was more about gaining information. It wasn't so much about, well, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an artist. So it really just came down to that. And then quite a few years after, I ended up back in Sydney and I thought, well, I really love philosophy and I love ethics. And so I decided to do additional courses at the university in Sydney. And I think that's really where my passion for ethics, general ethics as a human being, contribution to planet, people, really found its roots.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Traditional schooling, it's not for everyone.
Well, I think, look, I think it's in a lot of discussions have been had in media over that topic for a long time. I think if you have a definite idea of what it is that you want to do and why you want to do it. I think it's really awesome. But that certainly wasn't the case for me. And I don't feel that it's the case for majority of people. And really you want to find something to do with your life where you feel passionate and enthusiastic and motivated to be able to get up and go to work every day, right? Isn't that the ideal? So I think kind of deciding that at the age of 15 is a little bit much to ask.
It's tough. Yeah, I like empathise with that. I think for me going through high school, I thought it was basically about playing sport. And I thought university was about having fun. It wasn't until a couple of years later I realised you actually had to get a job.
Yeah, had to
and make
work.
some money and, develop a career. And that's when study became more relevant, but it was something I wanted to do rather than sort of some...
Did you stick with your traditional choice? Is that what you did all the way through?
I started off actually as I did a degree in recreation fitness.
Oh, wow, right.
So I'm a qualified abseiling instructor back in the day, but obviously haven't done it for 25 years. But I then went in traditional finance. But, it was an interesting path. I love working in recreation fitness. Just at an early age, I decided that's not the path. Now, back to your career.
Yes.
You started touching, I know you sort of worked in the hospitality industry in the early years.
Yes.
Take us through sort of a couple of steps on how you got to where you are today from a work perspective.
Okay. So I did a lot of restaurant and bar work while I was travelling. The hours suited, so I could end up in a place or a location, be able to tourist around during the day and then work at night time. So I didn't love hospitality. I found it difficult.
Gotcha.
So for me, it kind of really was just a financial basis. But the one thing that hospitality did really teach me was hard work and what that actually meant, and that I probably didn't really want to do that for the rest of my life. So that was really interesting. And then I jumped across into bookkeeping and finance.
Gotcha.
And I loved that. I loved the structure. I loved the numbers. I loved the overall coming of success. How do the numbers make that work? And the one thing that I noticed very quickly is a lot of my clients were very hardworking people, but the numbers didn't reflect that. And so for me, I kind of thought, well, how does physical hard work and passion equate to financial success? Because it's very difficult to marry the two. So how do you do that successfully? A lot of really hardworking people, motivated people, passionate people are not financially successful.
For sure.
And so then I thought, well, I'd like to try if I could do the two. And so ideally for me, construction came around. I fell pregnant with my first child after I was married very, very quickly, which was very unexpected. And I thought, well, if I'm going to survive in Sydney and support a family, how do I best do that? And so it really was a case of using two skill sets. What did my husband's at the time skill set provide, and what did mine, and how do I marry those two? So really that was the foundation of Puch Construction and Building. It was solely financially driven on the basis of how do I support a young family and how do I remain in Sydney. It didn't have grand plans or designs or ideas that it would turn into the company that it had or that the journey would take me to where it has. It literally was a case of how do I work smart and hard, and how do I make that financially viable? So it really came down to those two things.
I can say that's the one thing about entrepreneurship. You can work your hours, right?
Yeah.
And as a parent, working parents, one of those jobs where you can actually make it work.
Yeah.
It's tough doing 9 to 5 for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So you can work the hours that make sense.
Yeah.
Now, talking about people who have influenced you, if you were to pick, top 3 people that have influenced you across your life, it could be in your personal life or in the business world.
Right.
It's interesting to hear.
Okay, so oddly enough, there was a judge that I met in, I think I was probably about 19, and he was around 60, I think, at the time. And I met him working through hospitality at night time. And he was very profound in shaping my thoughts, I think. He taught me a lot of really valuable life lessons that I've carried all the way through. So I'm very, very grateful to that man. And the fact that he took time and energy to spend that with me was really quite phenomenal. As far as business goes, I don't really like to look at too many people. I don't like being clouded by other people's thoughts, ideas, the way that they do things.
Yeah.
And I think that ideally for me, the best way to learn is to be able to critically think, risk assess and solve things on my own.
Yeah.
So I tend to really veer away from mentorship and I tend to stay away from looking too closely at really successful people because what works for them often might not work for me, and I'd like to do things on my terms, right? So if I'm successful, it's because I've done things the way that I've wanted to do them, not sort of looking at other people and how they do it.
Hey, if you're enjoying this, please subscribe on whatever platform you're using. It helps us build a community. We want to educate investors, and this is what it's all about. A lot of people have mentors. A lot of the young kids these days have their 5 or 6 mentors in different areas of their life, which I think for some people is valuable. But I kind of like your thinking, right? You got to learn on the run, and you can get tips and lessons, but you've got to do it yourself. No one else is going to do it for you.
You do, and I think for me, the greatest gift that really gave me was critical thinking, risk assessment, and knowing how to be able to do that. And also one of the other big things, I suppose, that you learn is that you're not reliant on other people when things go wrong.
True.
It teaches you the ability to be able to quietly within your own capacity, mental capacity and emotional capacity, to be able to work out what the problems are and then come up with reasonable solutions that you can try. That doesn't mean all of them will work, but you can certainly pivot and make it work if it doesn't. So I think that's really such an amazing asset to have, where I don't feel that I need to pick up a phone and call someone and go, gosh, I'm really stuck with whatever. I can go for a run, or I can go to the gym, or I can sit quietly and go, right, what are the issues? Why aren't they working? How do I make it work? So I think that's really, really important as a successful person to be able to do that.
I think that links into decision making, right? Like you do your own assessment. You've got to make decisions. And a lot of decisions in business are hard, and the worst thing is obviously not to make one. And if you can form your own views, do your own analysis, and make the call, whether it's right or wrong, you just got to get most of your calls right, and then you'll be moving forward.
Well, it's interesting just what you've said, because the other thing that I've learned is that there isn't right or wrong. There's only fallout, and you have negative and positive fallout no matter which decision you make. So I used to worry about that quite a lot in the earlier days. Have I made the right decision? Is this the right thing to do? Across multiple different scenarios throughout the week and the month and then the year. And I kind of really realized about 7 or 8 years into business, I'm not sure if that's fast or slow, but I realized very quickly that there is no such thing as a right decision. There's smart risk assessment, where you assess the risks. And then when you make your decision, there is always negative and positive fallout. So really it's a case of driving the positive and then really working out what's not working and making it work. So I kind of don't sweat those decisions anymore, not for a long time. I kind of just look at it and go, do you know what? Doesn't really matter which way I'm going to go here. The risk is the same. Which way do I want to go? Which way do I feel passionate most about going with? Because there will be fallout no matter what you do. So, so it's a really interesting thought.
And I mean, so even if it's clearly the wrong decision, it's more about the next trade, the next decision.
Exactly.
So which path do you go down?
Exactly.
Because you can make a comeback from bad decisions.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
And you have outside influences as well, right? And they're forever shifting, and you can't control those. So just because you make a decision, be it in finance or construction, there are so many outside factors that will affect that decision. You really need the skill to be able to go, well, that was the right decision, but it's not going to work given what's happened at the moment. Or you go, well, that was the wrong decision, but something's coming in where that's actually going to work. So I'll hold 5 and just see how it rolls out. So, it's interesting.
Gotcha. Okay, so this next question is probably more relevant for you. So you've mentioned about the judge that sort of gave you sort of some direction, influenced you.
He did,
If you think about your career, what were a couple of pivotal moments?
Oh gosh, do you know, people always ask me this. I'm not sure how to best answer that. There have been so many. I think the most important one that nearly sent me under within the first 3 years of opening the first company was overcommitting to contracts and not having enough cash flow to be able to fund them. Back then, banks didn't want to know me, and why would they? I wasn't a sure bet for them.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so it really came down to a case of, well, how do I then problem solve that? So I did problem solve it, and here we are. But that was really a critical decision for me where, again, outside factors contributed, but really it wasn't the shortage of work, it was the shortage of cash flow to be able to deliver on the work. So when you're faced on those kinds of decisions, you're kind of like, well, you know, in 3 or 4 months' time, the cash flow will be awesome, but now it isn't.
Yeah, it's critical.
Really difficult back then. So I think that was a pivotal moment. Had I not been able to do that effectively, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today. I think the other one professionally for me was certainly starting Charlie's Interiors and having the ability to be able to just shift how the buying and selling market, development market presents in Sydney. And I really feel quite passionate about that. So I'm very grateful that I went ahead and did that regardless of what the feedback at the time was. So I think that was a really important decision to make as well. And that has led on to other journeys. I think that's it, really.
Yeah. Sounds like for you, it's not so much pivotal moments; it's lots of moments.
Well,
constantly making decisions and progressing.
Do you know? I think I'm one of these people, honestly, where I love excitement. I don't like to be bored, and I love using my brain. And so, for me, if things are too stable and too easy, I will then go and look at doing something else. So I'm super grateful. The senior management team that I started with 16 years ago are still working with me now. So I have incredible support across different departments and divisions. I certainly couldn't do what I do on my own. But I think the funniest thing that they always say is each time I go away overseas on a trip, they're like, right, what are you going to come back and make us do next, right? So they've kind of adjusted to well, she's done that and it's working really well. Something else will come in where she'll go, right, we're doing this now. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
Sounds like a bit of fun.
I like it. I like it. You know, what's the point if you're not enjoying what you do and you're not mentally stimulated and you don't have a passionate about the next day or the next week? That doesn't seem a lot of point to me.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode. If you want to learn more about alternative assets, there's a book here you can read, How You Grow Your Wealth with Alternative Assets. Now back to the episode. I think the next question leads into that. So I want to delve into, you know, what you're doing now for your business. And your focus on sustainability and your why.
And my why. Okay. So look, I think construction, obviously incredible contributor to pollution and global warming and environmental factors. And difficult, really difficult to broach because fundamentally it is what it is, and industry is what it is. It's very difficult to try and shake things up and change them. But I think from a development side through Charlie's Interiors, little things when it comes down to design of homes and then execution in developing it. So things like using recycled timber as opposed to raw timber or natural timber, being smart about the design. So putting split systems into individual rooms as opposed to whole houses or upstairs and downstairs. Obviously solar, you're looking at using as much environmentally safe products as you can in the actual design of the home. It's really critical. They're doing some really incredible things with cement in America on a trial basis at the moment where they're capturing carbon monoxide in it. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't, but I can understand roughly what you're talking about.
So they're doing some really interesting things with that. So I'd love to see how that rolls out and whether that's actually viable or not. But I think the most critical thing as well is to kind of, when I look at using products, is a lot of them, when you dig a little bit deeper and you look at what it actually takes to manufacture them, they're a lot more harmful to the environment than the original product. So it's always kind of a juggling act. But for me, as much as possible, as much as I can, I will definitely use use or replace or put in place of. The other thing that I do with my developments is I sell them fully furnished.
Gotcha.
So they come with sofas, original artworks, table, chairs, glasses. So effectively you open the door, walk straight in, and you can host a party. So
nice.
It's pretty cool.
Everyone hates moving.
Well, they do, and your furniture never fits, right?
Yeah, true.
So to have something that's custom made and then furnished beautifully for purpose, I think is awesome.
Sure.
So things that I do is I use Australian artists and use original art. I don't do prints. I use environmentally sound products that are produced ethically. I will go overseas and visit the factories personally to make sure that people are being paid correctly, that they're working in safe conditions. Yeah, and I love that.
Yeah.
It's really, really incredible to be able to go to different countries and kind of get absorbed into the production of how things are done.
So presumably clients come to you for that sort of sustainability angle as well?
Well,
that's your differentiation point?
I don't think they do, to
Gotcha.
be honest. I don't think anyone really pays a lot of attention to it. I think they just walk into a home that's up for sale. So I don't work for private clients any longer.
Yeah.
I will buy my own properties, build, develop, fully furnished, and then put into the market. I think people just walk in and go, wow, this is beautiful.
Gotcha.
And they buy it because it's beautiful. I
Gotcha.
don't believe anyone goes, she's used,
gotcha.
environmental products.
Yeah.
But it's not about that. It's about
Understand.
actually putting them into that space.
Fine. So
Whether people acknowledge or appreciate is nice if they do, but that's not why I do it.
Gotcha. So it's more your passion on the sustainability, and the client, you're just getting a product they want regardless of how it's been put together.
They're just getting a benefit. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it is. Yeah, I think at some point it really has to stop being about the profit and getting a higher profit, and we really have to start looking at responsible leadership and being in development and being in construction. You're a leader. You have an obligation to the planet. You have an obligation to the next generations to come, and it's something that you should take seriously. So if you need to take a hit of 5% or 10% on your profit margin, but you can do things better, then you should be.
Yeah,
I
gotcha.
think.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right?
I agree. Yeah.
So you're still making money. You're just not making as much as you would be, but you're contributing. And I think there's an obligation to do that. So I find it really disheartening when I see people that don't hold that mentality.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that 5 to 10%, it's not you're reducing a real profit, but you argue it's a social profit is a perfect offset, right?
That's right.
That's the angle.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, sort of stepping just in your career again. So often I'll ask, what made you make the jump from a traditional career path to entrepreneurship? But it sounds like you've been an entrepreneur pretty much most of your life. So my question then becomes, what advice would you give someone who's looking to be an entrepreneur? Is there any steps you think they should take, or any ideas?
Look, I'm not sure. I'm never very comfortable with giving advice because you can't ever understand another person's positioning in life.
Sure.
But I think one of the critical things that I have learned probably a little bit later is that you need to, as a human, as a person, if you're planning on being a leader or an entrepreneur or a business person or whatever you want to call yourself, you need to make sure that mentally, emotionally and physically, spiritually to a part, that you up-level and upskill yourself, right?
Sure.
So the critical thing I think that I can say is having dreams and ideas and visions is really important, but without focus and discipline and the physical doing, that's all it's ever going to be. And a lot of people miss that physical doing part. So they kind of have amazing ideas, they have amazing visions and don't physically put the effort in to make it work, right? So without the physical, you will get nowhere, but without having the vision and ideas, you will also get nowhere. So it's really important that all those things for you as a human are functioning to full capacity. And as you travel on your journey, things get difficult. They always do. It's never an easy ride and there's always a price to pay, as I'm sure you know. Sure. So making sure that you're continuously maintaining that emotionally, mentally and physically, really, really important as well. Because if you let any of that slip, it's just as easy to go backward. So I think I think that would be it, really.
Yeah, I think a key point is that you got to take action, right? Like you can have brilliant ideas unless you take the first step, second step, third step, and keep going and jumping over, obstacles.
Yeah.
You don't get there, right? So that's just taking that step and the leap of faith.
Yeah, and making sure that you continuously deliver and you show up and you do it,
sure.
So even when days are hard, you get up and you go. Yeah.
It's actually quite a good lead in. So what about bumps in the road? So you mentioned before about, so the cash flow thing you mentioned is so critical for a small, middle-sized business. And I know from my business, and we're generating quite good revenue, but the cash flow bounces up and down. I'm always watching the cash flow. And at times you can be highly profitable and your cash can go backwards because you have things like receivables and the elements. So I think that's that was a bump in the road you got through. But what other bumps in the roads, obstacles have you got over in your career?
In career, professionally? Look, I think there's always a lot. I've been very lucky with client. I work for government and I work for myself. So I don't have client issues, which I think a lot of other companies possibly do. But I think resources, particularly in Australia, really, really difficult. Skilled labour, incredibly difficult. I think mindset also. So I find shifting people's mindset professionally requires years of skill.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so when you're trying to do new things or put new ideas in or new strategy or new planning, having the ability to be able to lead and sort of make the team enthusiastic about that. Definitely big hurdles in the road. And without having a successful team that support what you want to do, you will not ever be successful. So it's really important that those things are made along the way. So definitely big bumps in the road, always, never ending. And I think also, like anything else in life, really, the nature of external forces, right? So political forces, COVID, which was quite a long time ago, but had a profound impact and is still having an impact in construction with the increasing cost of goods, shipments and the like. So, it's not something that's kind of disappeared from the radar. So I think external factors are always really difficult to navigate as well. You just never know what's going to come up.
Very good. Now, what is your definition of success?
Oh, gosh.
Personal and professional. And they probably overlap anyway, but...
Personal and professional. My definition of success. Well, I think there's a universal scale of what success is. And I think how you stack up against that is a measurable entity, certainly professionally. So I think... professionally, success is the ability to long-term manage and run a company or companies. I think being financially profitable is absolutely a measure of success. I think having a happy and cohesive senior management team is definitely a sign of success. And also contribution, your level of contribution as a director. So I think professionally, those three things are really quite critical as a measure of success. And then also from a client side, providing a service or a product that people can be proud to have or to own or to work in or to do whatever they're doing in it.
Gotcha. Hey, if you're enjoying this, please leave a review. It's really important to us. We're trying to build momentum around education, and better reviews will get more people coming and listening. Yeah, because I think I read you've 16 years, your first business.
Yeah.
And so how do you keep up the energy across 16 years? Is it because what you mentioned earlier, you're always adding ideas and so you've always got the next idea bolting on, or is it just something else?
I don't, possibly a little bit of that, yes. I think if I was bored, I would have left a long time ago. But I do add things to make it interesting. I don't know. I think honestly, genetically, I think I was just gifted with being born quite positive, enthusiastic, with lots of energy. And so I think I don't know whether it's environmental. I don't know whether it's genetic. I think I was just born the way that I am. And
born with energy.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I kind of just, even on tough days, I'm like, okay, well, let's go. Yeah. So I don't tend to get caught up too much in negative mindset or critical thinking of yourself. Gotcha. I kind of just go, all right, dust off you go, right? So I think, I think that's it really. Don't think there's really anything else.
It's a brilliant trait for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because there's often you get up by yourself and thinking, oh, what do I do today? What do I do with this problem? You've just got to get over it and keep moving. So I think you've got to take the knocks. So I think that's the right mental state, the right sort of thought process.
Yeah.
Now, this question overlaps, but what legacy are you living and leaving, do you think?
I love that word legacy. I've been using that a lot lately.
Yeah.
So look, I think from a construction viewpoint, you're always leaving a legacy and a footprint, certainly for 100, 200, 300 years in some cases. So as far as PCB goes, we certainly focus on doing really difficult but interesting projects that we can certainly be proud of. So we do things like heritage building, refurbs. We're working on numerous lighthouses at the moment, which are hundreds of years old already.
Where are those ones?
Sorry?
Where are the lighthouses?
The one in Sydney is just in Watson's Bay.
That's great.
So it's really beautiful. So I think legacy from a construction viewpoint is really important. I don't want to really be involved in something that I'm not proud to do. So we do things like lead removal, asbestos removal, a lot of heritage work, which are all critical things. So cleaning up environmentally, but then also being able to go, well, hold on, I did that. And my kids will see it and my grandkids will see it. Gotcha. So I think that's really important. Legacy through Charlie's Interiors. Still quite a new company. I'm not sure how big and how quickly that'll go. Gotcha. I do family homes. I don't do apartments, units, and I don't do sloppy building. That is not what I'm there to do. I really want to make sure that I can provide and build beautiful family homes that are built ethically and sustainably, and then fill them with beautiful products so that people can really enjoy the space. And I think the most critical thing maybe that people are learning now is that your home environment and your home space really affects how you live, how you think and how you feel. And so when you walk into a home and you feel beautiful being in that space, and so does your family, it tends to make your day a little easier. So I think through Charlie's, that's definitely something that I punch very hard towards. How do you feel when you walk into a space? And that's the legacy, right? Build beautiful homes where people can really feel relaxed and happy being there and enjoy the space.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Totally different example, but I walked into my son's bedroom this morning.
Oh, did you?
And it just made me feel mad.
Oh, really? You were angry?
And I wasn't angry. I went in there and there was mess everywhere and rubbish. And so I do get your point, right, about your house. If there's not balance there, it does affect, it does affect how you go about things.
It so does.
Yeah,
I'm glad you flagged that. Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think people don't think about that. I do. I think about that. So,
I do get it. Yeah. Okay, we're off to some quickfire questions.
Oh, okay.
Now, this one can go back to, I know you mentioned you came out to Australia when you were 8.
Yes.
But this goes to, what was your first job?
I picked potatoes when I was 10 and it was cold and hard on the back of the tractor. And then for weeks after, I would blow out black snot and mucus because all the dirt goes up your nose. Terrible job, but I did it for many years and it really taught me the value of work. And also whenever I come up against the hard day, I just look back and go, can't be harder than potato picking. So that was it.
Pretty good. Sounds pretty young too, so that's good.
Well,
Gave you the work ethic, right? Yeah, for sure.
Farming community in the middle of nowhere, there was no such thing as child labour. It was like, well, if you want a job, you can go pick potatoes. Yeah,
where I grew up in country Victoria was a picking of stuff like that as well.
Oh, did you do that?
No, I actually didn't do it though. Like I was a town kid living in a country town in town. My father was a school teacher, but it was a potato growing area around that region. Yeah. So I knew a lot of kids that did do that type of work and sort of hay carting and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you do.
And so it does teach you the work ethic.
It does, yeah.
What piece of advice for your younger self?
For my younger self, don't listen to people.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, you got to form your own path. Yep. What motivates you most as a person?
Oh, just the one thing?
Yeah. Give me two.
Okay, what motivates me as a person? I think leaving legacy. Yep. Definitely. And I think seeking my own adventure and fun.
Good. I like it. What are your tips for driving long-term wealth?
Physically, emotionally, mentally, make sure you as a human are on par and always looking after those 3 elements. Make sure emotionally you're okay, mentally you're okay, and physically you're in good shape.
That's great. You know, first person that hasn't mentioned the pure finance aspect of wealth.
Really?
You're looking, most of the people you speak to, it's about the financial aspects, but kind of you're thinking slightly differently.
Well, that's the end result.
Yeah.
That's not that's just the
Yeah, for sure.
byproduct of who you are,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like your wealth is because of who you are. It's the end result.
It's like the build you're suggesting. You're talking about the building blocks, whereas a lot of others will talk about the end game.
No.
Totally understand.
No. Building blocks, the rest will come.
Gotcha. What is your biggest mistake? This is all one.
Oh, gosh, biggest mistake. I don't think I've had one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really don't. There's nothing that I would have done differently. There's nothing that I regret doing.
Yeah.
Even uncomfortable situations have been great learnings, yeah. So I don't, genuinely, there's nothing. There's nothing where I could say professionally or personally has been the biggest mistake or even a mistake. I think they're just all really great opportunities to either step up or step aside. So, yeah.
It sounds like your thought process, right? You want to continually make decisions and move forward. So I totally understand there's not a mistake.
That's not a mistake.
It's just a step. It could be left, right, backwards, forwards.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, when you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
Oh, gosh, I love doing lots of things. So I fly. I'm doing flying lessons, almost pilot license.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think I have 8 hours left and you can call me captain
That's
next
cool.
time.
Yeah, very good.
So I love to fly. I love to rock climb. So really, do a lot of rock climbing. I think just relaxes me. I think I'm more drawn to things where if I'm participating in an activity, I can't think about anything else. I have to have complete focus on that one thing.
Totally get it.
So it just relaxes me.
Yep.
What else do? I travel a lot. I love to travel. So I make sure that every few months I get on a plane and go somewhere like India, Mongolia, sort of really out there places and do some really fun things.
It's brilliant. Sounds you've got a pretty active life.
I like it, yeah.
Thanks for making time.
Thank you.
Now, if you're interested in connecting with Charlie, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. If you'd like to find out more about Charlie's business endeavours, we'll include links in the show notes. But really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been great to have a chat.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Hey, if you're enjoying this, please leave a review. It's really important to us. We're trying to build momentum around education, and better reviews will get more people coming and listening.